Today, I'm joined by a very special guest you've seen across WCW, WWE, ECW, TNA. He is a world-traveled professional wrestler and second-generation star, Mr. Erik Watts. Erik, how are you, sir?
I'm doing fantastic, man. How about you?
I can't complain. You know, Southern Indiana, the weather's beautiful today. It's hit and miss, as you know.
Southern Indiana.
I'm about 45 minutes north of Louisville, so you're pretty familiar with my area.
Nice. Yeah.
So, I feel like it's a dumb question asking, but what made you get into professional wrestling, and when did you actually decide that that's something you wanted to do growing up the way that you did grow up?
Wrestling was not ever really in my deck of cards. I wasn't looking to pro wrestle. I had in wrestling, my dad's federation, from selling shirts, setting up rings, to security, to counting tickets, to counting money, to transporting wrestlers, to marketing, advertisement, studio audience, input, everything. Early on, my mom had talked to my father. My father didn't graduate from college. He went to the University of Oklahoma and was drafted to the Houston Oilers, but didn't finish his degree, right? A lot of athletes, I don't even know if you could redshirt back then. So, shoot, on my football team, there's quite a few athletes that redshirted and had 5 years and didn't get their degree. My mom did not go to college. She went basically straight into modeling and doing things like that. So with the Von Erich family being very close to us and all the things that we saw transpire with that family and the kids, and not just them. I mean, from the Grahams, the Gagnes, to the Rhodes, to the, you have a lot of people, second generation kids. And my mom's big thing was, look, I want my kids to have something to fall back on in case injury or wrestling doesn't work out. So my brother Joel did not wrestle. He was at college and he went into doing video production, in which my dad started him out just like a lot of people do, refereeing and then announcing, and then he took over all the video production and then worked for WCW, then worked for WWE as well, and a lot of big studios, ESPN Sports and things like that. So, but as far as wrestling, the deal was that we had to get our degree first. So I was going to go, late. In the late rounds to either Cincinnati or Tampa Bay. Mm-hmm. And I had asked my father, basically, I was like, hey, I've graduated with my degree. I want to get in the ring, just play around. And that's what I did. He knew a friend of his, the Masked Assassin, Jody Hamilton, had a school south of Georgia. And so I went down there for about 21 days to just see what it felt like. And then I was on the way back to Louisville, and Dusty Rhodes asked me if I wanted to do a match, and I was just like laughing. I'm like, Dusty, I've only been in the ring 21 days, man. And to keep this short, because we only have like 40 minutes, because this is a big question, I'm just giving you the cliff notes. So I end up in like Cleveland, Tennessee. Then I believe it was, I did like Nashville, and I can't remember it. And basically after day on my way back, because these are kind of on the way from Atlanta to Louisville, I called him every night after the matches. I was only going to wrestle one, and he goes, how about the next town? And then how about the next town? And I was like, yeah, man, I'd love to. And basically in a nutshell, at the end of that 3 days, he goes, man, because I only had 3 classes to finish my master's in business administration, my MBA. And, because I was telling him, I'm like, hey, I'm going to get my master's. I'm going to get a job in Atlanta. I'm going to come train. I'm very interested now. And he said, brother, you ain't going back to college. You need to be back in Atlanta. Your next match is going to be on Saturday Night Live TV, which actually they called it WCW Saturday Night. But it was filmed on Mondays, back in the day. So, just like Vince's and everybody else's, until we got in the TV wars and had it live and all that other stuff, it was, a lot of it was taped. So Man, next thing I know, my 23rd, 24th day in the ring ever, I'm on TV and I'm rocking and rolling. I got a full schedule and flying around and trying to learn on the job.
Was there anything that came natural for you when you started training, or maybe that was a little more difficult for you to get the hang of when you first started out?
A few things that were different for me is I had a extensive amateur wrestling background,
Hmm.
and therefore it's kind of weird. In amateur wrestling, you fight not to be on your back by like arching out of a position or rolling. And that can be very dangerous when you're first learning to, take bumps to your back, right? You don't want to break your daggum neck. Um, Growing up, though, I played a lot of sports. And on top of playing a lot of sports, we had like a 3 foot diving board at our house. And I was always doing, double gainers, 1.5 with twists, um, layouts, front flips, back flips. So and I did a little bit of gymnastics when I was very, very young. So all of that really helped as far as twisting your body. All the amateur wrestling helped because now when you're going to chain wrestle or mat wrestle, you can get in there and without even calling moves, you can just move around. The funny thing is it just makes it more difficult for the guys that don't know how to amateur wrestle or shoot because they're a little bit out of the water. It really helped like going to Japan because a lot of times in Japan, there's a communication difference. Number one,
Hmm.
and number two, a lot of those guys are have some of the shoot background, so you could get in there and just if you wanted to do the first 3 or 4 minutes, you could just be doing double legs, single legs, fireman carries, switches, stand. I mean, you could just do it. So that really helped. Understanding and loving the business your whole life. It
Hmm.
helped with the history of things. I didn't
Yeah.
need someone to tell me that Barry Windham was Blackjack Mulligan's son. I didn't need someone to introduce me to Dustin Rhodes because Dustin Rhodes actually came on a football trip to the University of Louisville when they were looking at him for maybe scholarshiping to play football. The Rock and Roll Express used to throw the football with me in the back, at some of these arenas after I set up the ring. The Junkyard Dogs, the Steve Dr. Death Williams, the Hacksaw Jim Dugans, the Stings, all those guys I grew up knowing.
Hmm.
The Rick Scott, that helped. Things that didn't help, when I came to WCW, my dad was the president. And so those guys that did not know me
Hmm.
were going to hold it against me. And one of the things I remember most is when I first got there, Dustin Rhodes came and just hugged me. He goes, "Hey, brother, I'm so glad you're here." And I'm like, "Oh, wow, you know what? What a great welcome, man. Like when I welcomed him when he came on his football visiting trip, I was like, man, it made me feel warm. He goes, now everyone can hate you. I go, what? So and so I can understand it. I mean, here's Dustin and Dusty Rhodes, but I will say I wasn't around Dustin when he broke in. He broke in at a young age, but by the time I got to WCW, I don't know whether he's in third, fourth, fifth year wrestling. I don't know exactly how long he'd been wrestling, but the man is one of the better workers in the ring. So, I mean, he can handle himself, but handling yourself and understanding how to work is completely different from taking all the abuse and heat in the back, But again, I was raised different, most of my time, when people were taking the time to stir up crap or haze me or take the time to talk crap behind my back, man, I felt bad for them.
Hmm.
I really did. There's a lot of guys I felt bad for because one, I knew that anything I dedicated myself to, I would succeed.
Hmm.
So there's some guys in the locker room. I'm like, these guys are worrying about dogging me, talking behind my back, stirring shit up in the locker room, and they're not even going to make it.
Hmm.
I mean, they should pay. They should spend more time going and working out and training instead of kissing someone's rear end, thinking that they're going to get brownie points by dogging me,
Yep.
right?
Hmm.
Number one. Number two, I mean, I've never had to really dislike someone prior to meeting them. I mean, why are you going to hate anybody without ever meeting them, right? So there's, those guys that I never knew and they didn't know me, those guys that wanted to talk it, Then you had a lot of your dirt sheet readers, and the dirt sheets were always eating me up. Matter of fact, I should have got royalties from them. I mean, I think I was on the cover of all the dirt sheets for I don't know how long, and they read them and they laugh. And I never picked up a dirt sheet. Meltzer's and all those guys, dirt sheets. And again, I don't know enough about them, meaning I know what they are, but I never read them. The only times that I thought it was stupid is, getting into telling the guys real names, right? I mean, people could find it out today in Google anyway. But I mean, what's the need? I didn't understand that. I didn't get that. Some people have, they get to switch their name for certain reasons. I remember when Rob Rex Steiner came to my dad's federation, and he liked it there, and he was doing well. And then all of a sudden, he was like, "Hey, Bill, people are toilet paper in my house and find out we are and egg in my house and doing these things." He goes, "I want to stay, but we're going to move. I got to do something about my name," because back in the day there was no internet, right? Yeah. And there was only the white pages, and you'd look up the white pages to find someone's number. My dad said, "It's easy. I'll switch your name, and people will forget about it." And so my dad is the one that said, "Okay, we're just going to take your last name, Reck Steiner, and I'm going to make the Reck a Rick, and now you're Rick Steiner." And matter of fact, from what I understand, I need to talk to him next time I'm with him with Scott Steiner. There was some heat for a long time because Scott, I think Scott really, he's still in college wrestling, and I think he thought it was disrespectful to change the last name. But the other thing too is he should have just talked to Rob about it, And I know there was a lot of heat when my father at WCW told him he was going to split them up. And the thing about it is Rick knew my father for so long. He knew my dad was a master of wrestling, and my dad used to tell him, "Guys, one, you guys are going to Japan making the same money all the time. You're here, you're making the same money. You guys are capped out on being paid as a tag team, and there's nothing better than brothers fighting." And he goes, so I'm going to split. And from what I understand, again, I should talk to Scott sometime about it, I guess, or Rick. But from what I understand, Scott went through the roof. Like, he was mad. And my father was doing it, one, for good angles. Two, he was doing it actually because he loved Rick to death. And I think he wanted to see Rick. Rick was a hard worker. I think he wanted to see his contracts even go higher and higher and higher. And so they went to Japan, and they still tagged in Japan. But I can tell you what, Big Papa Pump made more money than Scott Steiner would have ever made in his life, as a tag. And Rick Steiner made great money as well. So it all worked out in the end. But that's being raised in a situation in which I know the office side and I know the talent side. And I lived with one of the greatest promoters of all times. So I got a clear understanding of the fact that, sometimes as a talent, you get tunnel vision. You see all the people in the stands and go, "I should make more money." Well, great. But when the stands are half full, should you make less? So, so there was a lot of give and go and pull. And so as a kid, I got to watch so many different back end parts of the business that I think that's another reason why I didn't really give a crap what people said and didn't say when I came to WCW at first, because very few, if any, of the people in the locker room that I was in that was a talent would understand business. As a matter of fact, none of them would.
Mm-hmm.
The closest thing to someone understanding both sides of the business when I was at WCW would have been a Dusty Rhodes,
Mm-hmm.
right? He
Yeah.
never, he opened a small federation in which I helped, do some training and stuff, turnbuckle championship wrestling. But minus that, he promoted, but I don't think he ever owned a federation or nothing the size of like a Mid-South Sports or a AWA or again and again. But he sat with enough owners and he
Mm-hmm.
understood, payroll, and he understood, what the house was doing and not doing. Maybe a Jeff Jarrett, I'm sure a Jeff Jarrett because Jeff Jarrett saw Jerry Jarrett. Greg Gagne, a lot of people don't know. I mean, but he had a pretty decent career up with his father. But Greg Gagne would understand it as well, So, but there were other guys like a Barry Windham that he saw enough that he was a very good mentor. He was always like, these guys, don't even listen to it, But I never went to anybody. I never went to Sting or any of these guys and said, "Oh, I can't take it." No, if anything, that's kind of, Sting was the one that kind of ended a lot of it, on the day that me and Rude got into it, because he was the one that said, "Hey, Watts, you don't have to play this rookie card anymore. Your hazing days are over." And so that was a big deal, and it squashed a lot of the crap talking immediately. So
Mentally for you, since it happened so quickly, were you prepared for that role early on in WCW, like being in front of crowds and doing stuff like that? Was it nerve-wracking for you, or did it come natural for you?
yeah, nothing, zero.
Mm-hmm.
No, as far as crowds, when you're talking
Mm-hmm.
about crowds, I mean, my first start was on ESPN in a sold out Horseshoe, Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
100,000 plus people on ESPN, so you've got the crowds, boo, cheer, you don't get on much bigger stages than that. I mean, when I say never, it wouldn't matter if it was an empty stadium or there was a million people in that stadium. That portion, there was no stage fright. There was none of that. I would say the things would be more of the trying to learn as I'm on the road.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to, I'm trying to perfect movements and calls and understand different calls I could make in a match. I would say probably, something could be kind of nerve-wracking occasionally
Mm-hmm.
is when you had an interview and you were told exactly what to say.
Yeah.
And if it didn't kind of fit your persona, when I first got there, it's like, you got to be the All-American guy and wear your University of Louisville jacket and blah, blah, blah. And I did exactly what they said. But what these guys don't understand is, other than one of my best friends, Browning Nagel, that was my roommate for the majority of my time at Louisville. He went first pick, second round. He just passed away 2 weeks ago from colon cancer. It crushed me. But minus that, I was hanging out with the linemen, I was with the Hogs. I was with the defensive tackles, offensive linemen. I wasn't that quarterback. I was in the middle of things,
Yeah.
my dad had donated some wrestling mats the first year I was there, and in the off season, they decided they were going to have a amateur wrestling tournament, and so, pretty much when I put down everybody in that tournament, and then the two biggest guys on the team, one I penned in like 20 seconds, the other one I penned in like 13 seconds, and I'm not bragging about it, even though one of them was a 3-time Florida state high school wrestling champion. He was. And another guy was from the Bahamas, and he'd wrestled too. But Oklahoma is a little bit different level of wrestling. So is Pennsylvania, Iowa. I mean, there's just certain states that wrestling is very intense. But when I pretty much handled everybody, that shut down that locker room. I mean, most everyone understood, but when they saw that happen, they're like, "Hey, Watts ain't a quarterback. He's one of us." And so, as far as being in the grind, so if we went out at a bar and things were to pop off, most of the time everyone was looking at me like, "Hey, what are we going to do about this?" So that's why I say, so when I got to Louisville, all-star quarterback, blah, 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 I did it. But I would say probably some of my favorite times were when I was at TNA, where Vince Russo, I remember him asking me, he's like, "Hey, man, we want to change up some things and even get you on the mic a little bit more. How are you on interviews?" I said, "There's The Rock, and then there's me." And he said, Russo goes, "Really?" Well, it cracked me up the way he said it, like, really? Like he believed me, And I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Where have you got all this interview experience? I mean, WCW, but you didn't really do much interviews at WWE, blah, blah." I said, "All right here, brother. All right here, in my head, And he goes, "Okay, we'll run with it." And after my first two interviews, he was looking for ways to get me more mic time. Like there's sometimes I'd go out on the mic 2 times in a night, 3 times in a night, ad-libbing and doing things like, "Oh my gosh, someone's hurt. Can you go out and say," and having the fans rock it. So it was really cool. I was Erik Watts, then the director of authority. I could say what I want. I had no boundaries. And some of those things upset people like Jeff, because if Jeff was the point of my contention, I was not easy on anybody that I had an interview on. No, I was going to eviscerate you. And I remember one day, Russo, Jarrett, me, and so I can't remember who else, and it was going to be one of these things where they attacked me, and literally Russo, that idiot, they brought in like a stage bat, a rubber bat. Well, those rubber bats are like freaking rubber forearms, right? Just because they're rubber, thick rubber, does not mean they don't hurt. Well, this idiot thought, well, it won't hurt. They had me like tied up, and he was cracking me in the ribs. I thought I was gonna start coughing blood, but before it all happened, and then he was like talking to me. He said, "Watts," and Russo, he could get on the mic, brother.
Yeah.
I did not believe he said this. He goes, because I used to say stuff in my interviews. So like, I'd say, "This isn't TNA. This is Watts' world. What's going on? What's your problem? What's up?" I'd have all these things. "What's you looking at?" And I'd say something like, "I'm 6'6" and dreamy. I'm 6'6" and a good, And so he cracked up. And so he started calling me like 6'6" and sexy, 6'6" and dreamy and all that. And then he come up to me before the segment, goes, "Hey, 6'6" and dreamy, man." Like, he goes, "If you can, try not, if I start to turn to your face, kind of look away." I go, "Why?" He goes, "Because you make me laugh so much. I got to be serious in this interview. If you make me laugh, man, we're going to lose the crowd." So, someone that's written so much for so many people and had such a good time and all that. If I occupied that much of his mental space, that was a huge credit to me, because you're talking about one of the better writers. And he had done many and many interviews, and he was more worried that I would look at him and make him like laugh and lose it. So that to me is, I went to go listen to Buff Bagwell speak. He asked me, he goes, "Hey, I've got this event. Would you come listen to me speak?" And I said, "Yeah, man, I'll come," because I've done some speaking, quite a bit of speaking. And it was funny because I was sitting right next to his fiance, and we're sitting there, and he walks in, and the fiance's videotaping it, and he's telling the story. He spoke for like 45 minutes. Not once did he look down at me. And, right, I mean, I was like third row. And I was like kind of giggling inside because I was like, okay, if he tells this story and looks at me, it's going to be on because don't drag me into your stories, right?
Mhm.
And then afterwards I saw him and I started laughing. I said, bro, I said, you never even looked at it. He goes, nope, I wanted to stay on point. I had to remember what I was saying. He goes, I was afraid that if I looked at you, my mind would go elsewhere and I'd screw up. And he did a fantastic job. Like I think it was only his second time speaking in front of a crew, which was different, right? I mean, the first
Mhm.
time he spoke was at a church, and this one was at a rehabilitation center that asked him to come in and speak.
Mhm.
And so two different speeches, but still the same time you get in front of a crowd, brother,
Yeah.
if you're not used to doing the speaking, it can be intimidating and you dang sure don't want to lose. It's not like a pro wrestling thing where, you're doing a 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute gig. You're doing 45 minutes and you got to stay on
Mhm.
track.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people tell you their favorite memories or moments with you, but early on in WCW, is there anything that means something to you personally? And what led to you going to WWE?
Uh, Man, I don't want to make this sound bad, but a lot of my life
Hmm.
is somewhat of a blur,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, I wish maybe I need a podcast so I can interview people so I can kind of see the difference. But to
Hmm.
me, my whole life has been very, very busy from my father told me, he goes, if you have anything less than A's, you don't play sports. Sports is a privilege,
Hmm.
so we always studied very, very hard, and did that. And we lived on a farm. And so it was always one thing after another. I remember when I went to Louisville, I literally got up, because Coach Schnellenberger from Louisville, when you play high school ball, you're excited about the games after your senior year, right? And
Hmm.
so all city, all state, and then in Texas they got a thing called the Oil Bowl, and they take the best of Oklahoma and the best of Texas and play against each other for high school.
Hmm.
So pumped up. I was so pumped up, man. I wanted to show out, right? And Coach Schnellenberger said no. I go, what? He goes, no. He goes, what do any of those games mean to your career?
Hmm.
What if you got hurt or blew a knee? And when he said it, it made sense. He goes, the day after you graduate, the day, my offensive playbook is so complex that you need to, the day you graduate, the next morning you need to drive to Louisville and start summer school. And I go, okay. So I remember I was packing my bags, I was packing my car up. And back in the day, man, we didn't have GPS. So I've got the big old Rand McNally map book, and I'm mapping it out. It's like 700 and something miles away from Tulsa, Oklahoma to Louisville. And I get in the road, and I think I packed my stuff and then went back in and said, "Hey, Mom, I'm leaving." She goes, "Oh, okay, you're leaving. Okay, baby. Be safe. Call us when you get there." And there was my dad wasn't there. My brothers and sisters weren't there to say bye. I mean, it was just another business transaction. And I was
Hmm.
going, and for the 5 years that I was at Louisville, I don't think I went back to Tulsa but 3 times, four
Hmm.
times. I mean, other than when we played in Tulsa, played against Tulsa, but so because again, it was a business.
Yep.
Every summer, every summer I took summer classes. That's why I graduated with my first degree in 3 years, right?
Hmm.
Because the way I looked at it is, University of Louisville is going to pay for all of my education. I'm going to get as much education, And I used to
Yep.
do stuff like, because you could get tutoring and you could get all that. So a lot of times I would find someone, if there was a person in one of my classes that was struggling that I got to know, I'd say, hey man, let me get you a tutor. And what I would do is I'd sign up for a tutor for that class. They would come to the football dorm. I'd invite that person. They would sit down there and the tutor would tutor them instead, and I'd do homework for another class or whatever. It's just
Hmm.
it's just you just keep on going, you keep on giving back, you keep on doing your thing. So when you say, you know, was there anything, monumental or unforgettable. No, every day was brand new to me. Again, it's not until after wrestling that I really stopped to think about who in the world that's never been in a wrestling ring, watched it, done everything behind the scenes. Who in the world gets into a ring, learns how to hit the ropes in 23 days,
Yeah.
and starts? I don't care if it's an independent show. From what I know, no one does it. So if you could imagine, I was so busy just trying to learn and master my craft. Because in my head, as soon as I decided to pro wrestle, right, I wanted to be the best. So just like when I went to Louisville, coming from high school, and I've got it right here actually, right by me. I've got a framed autograph, a framed picture of the Heisman Trophy and all the winners. Give me one second. And I think my brother told me this thing's like worth like like $1,000. And it's just, I mean, you can buy them anywhere, but it's got every Heisman Trophy winner up to when I went to college. And I kept that in my dorm because my goal was to be a Heisman Trophy winner. Did I win the Heisman? No. Also wanted to win the national championship. No. We did beat Alabama 34-7 in the Fiesta Bowl, but I still had goals. So Howard Schnellenberger knew I was highly, highly recruited. And he's like, well, I'm sure Oklahoma wants you. Well, at the time, Oklahoma wasn't passing. They really weren't that passing team. So I wasn't going there anyway. They wanted me because I was also outside linebacker, and they really wanted me as an outside linebacker to push defensive tackle. My dad played defensive tackle. I didn't want to play defense in college. So, like Schnellenberger said, he goes, why would you, and not just Oklahoma, he goes, Eric, I know you can go to any college in the nation. Would you rather go to a college that's won all kinds of national championships, Alabama or wherever? Do you want to walk in tradition, or do you want to create the tradition? And I said, I want to create. So that was one thing that I have said several times. The people like Dustin Rhodes and all these different people that sometimes Lawlers or Jarrett's or, and I'm not saying all of them do or don't. I never came into wrestling to step in my father's footsteps. I came into wrestling to pounce on them so hard that you saw mine instead. Did I achieve that? No. I was put down due to internal bleeding and injuries. Ruptured my esophagus, and I just can't control. We did surgeries. I still choke on food occasionally. I still cough blood occasionally. I went to Emory. I went to several other places to try to figure it out after the surgeries. And they basically said, you're on a crash course to die at 32, 33. 58 now. I'm still here, thank God. But what I'm trying to say is everything was fast. And so there were no single memories. There's a whole bunch of really cool ones. If you could only understand everyone from a beautiful Bobby Eaton to being in the ring with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, to tagging with Dustin against Pillman and Austin, or DDP and Nash, or again, being in I can't remember what it was, Lethal Lottery or whatever the hell it was at WCW, and it's me and Sting versus, I think it's Jushin Lager and maybe Steve Dr. Death Williams or something like that, and being by Sting that I've known, since I'm 13 or 14 years old, those are the things. Like I told Steamboat when we went out there, I said, he goes, well, why don't you start out the match? It was a 6-man. I go, okay, if that's what you want. And he goes, what's wrong? I go, brother, I got to be honest with you. I'm going to tag out as soon as I can because I just want to watch the match. And he started laughing. He goes, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. I'm having a hard time concentrating, because you're in there with the legends and you're in there with the people that you've watched or you've been around your whole life. And or Dusty Rhodes, I used to wrestle Dusty all the time, TCW, Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling. He'd have me on the main event with him, against him, and I'm sitting here with him and Bullet Bob Armstrong and just watching him. I'm watching him entertain, and I'm in the ring, right?
Yep.
So those are the things that are just mind-numbing, the mind-boggling. The reason I went to WWE is because when my dad had left WCW, I believe we had a TV in Macon, and I'll never forget this. And so Eric Bischoff comes in to announce that my dad was the president of WCW. So when Bischoff took over, they said, we're not going to have a president. We're just going to have a vice president. So Eric Bischoff came as the vice president. Here he is to announce that he is the new head of WCW, basically. And he brought in all the talent, and we're sitting back there. And I was like, here we go, because he hates my father, right? And hates him. I'm like, And Arn Anderson had been running it a little bit there, and all that, which is really weird, Arn Anderson takes over, and then all of a sudden I'm kind of not on the road as much, and not Arn, excuse me, Ole Anderson, and Ole loved me to death, So I'm not sure exactly what was going on in the transition. So when Bischoff comes in, he gives a speech, and then he sits there and says, guys, take advantage of the power plant. Take advantage of the school. There's certain guys here that their days off are at the power plant. Like they go to the power plant. He goes, and one in particular is Erik Watts. And I'll go, what? I was so ready for him to say DDP because him and DDP were very good friends. And DDP, that's how we became good friends. When we were on the road, we were at the power plant. So that's kind of how we got our bond to this day. And he said, man, he goes, this kid shows that it's him going to work out every day to perfect his craft. And the next, my contract was, the WCW contract was that if they don't give, they've got to give you a 30-day or a 60-day notice before the end of your contract, or it flips for another year. And literally, I got paid, and my contract had flipped over. And the next thing you know, I've got no call, no anything. I got a letter in the mail saying, we're releasing you from your contract. And they took the money back. It was in my account. And so I had a whole bunch of feelings about that at first. Like, I could get a lawyer, I got lawyers. I could have sat there and said, no, I wrestled into my renewal. I've been paid. Also, on top of that, you guys paid me. No, but listen, if you don't want me somewhere, God bless you, So that's what did it. I was like, cool, I'll just go to WWE, So that's what I did.
Did you enjoy your time in WWE?
I enjoyed it. It was somewhat frustrating. I made some choices. I'll probably do it again, but I had the tight end at the University of Louisville, right? So when I was at WCW, his mom had called me, and he'd gone to Indianapolis Colts out of college, got let go from Colts, went to Cowboys, got let from the Cowboys, went to the Miami Dolphins. At the Miami Dolphins, he actually lived with my brother and my mom in Miami for the short period. And he got let go. And one of the quickest, his vertical was unbelievable. His hands were better than any wide receiver. The guy could just catch. But he did not like studying the playbook. He just didn't. And in the pros, brother, you don't study the plays. It doesn't matter how good your hands are,
Yeah.
So he got let go, and his mom had called me and said, "Hey, he's just, he's going up to casinos, and he's working the front desk, I think, at like Powerhouse Gym or something." I said, "What?" She goes, "Yeah, it's just horrible. Can you do something?" And I called him. I said, "Hey, if I get you a training contract at WCW, you want to move down here?" And of course, I moved him into my place,
Hmm.
free rent, blah blah blah. So he was there for about 2.5 years. And so, some things transpired, and he thought that he had been, disrespected, which I don't even know what that means. When you're making, damn near six figures to
Hmm.
go and roll around in a ring and be in the gym all day, you
Hmm.
know. Okay. So anyway, so he said, "Please, Eric, please." I go, "What do you want me to do?" He goes, "Take me to WWE." Well, what people don't know is, and I didn't know this. I legitimately did not know this. I had called WWE and said, "Are you interested in me?" And they go, "Yes, we are, but it doesn't matter who you are, you have to try out."
Hmm.
I'm like, "Why wouldn't you just watch?"
Yeah.
I mean, like,
Yeah.
that's not how the pros do it. Like football. I mean, we played against you or we watched you, But anyway,
Mhm.
so then when this came up, I actually called him back and said, "Hey, listen, I've got a guy. He's been in the school for like 2 years. He was going to debut. Matter of fact, this is a good story. Chad, they brought him down to Orlando to debut.
Mhm.
Finally, after 2 years, and this is what stuck in his craw. He was at Orlando, they bring in the audience. So you might be, in the studio or whatever. And so he was just sitting there because he's very shy, very quiet. And he was sitting in the back. And Flair came by him and said, "Hey, all the marks out." And he was like, "No, no, I work for WCW. Yeah, get out of here." Flair was probably just messing with him, ribbing him. He took that so bad. Believe it or not, this is a funny story. So he debuted because Orlando was taped. It wasn't
Mhm.
live. His first match on WCW was against Bill Goldberg. And Chad Fortune goes over. Chad beat Bill Goldberg. Now, when he came back, he was so pissed off.
Mhm.
He's like, "Please, please." So then I looked in the contract, saw a little loophole. I called WWF at the time and said, "Hey, I want to bring him." And this is exactly what they said. "You can bring whoever you want. It doesn't matter. But let me tell you what, if he doesn't make it, you don't make it. I wouldn't bring someone else." I said, "I got to." And I did.
Mhm.
And we made it. Well, think about this. We made it. WCW didn't even know Chad Fortune was going
Mhm.
because I found a loophole. They canned the Bill Goldberg thing and never showed it, or there would have never been the winning streak.
Mhm.
So things
It's
happen for a
crazy.
reason, right? So neither here nor there. Um, um, which Bill Goldberg and I, we're from the same town in Oklahoma.
Mhm.
So I've known Bill forever. Um, so, so basically, I bring him up there, and you know, he had been 2 years, and he's an incredible athlete. But what you said, our first match was in Madison Square Garden, sold out. Our next one was Boston Garden. And even though he had all this football experience, he crumbled in front of the crowds,
Mhm.
and it just hurts. And then Vince then wanted us to go to Memphis for a little bit to get him a little bit more, knock off some of the jitters. And during that time, Chad just they end up letting him go, So little things like that, I guess if I thought back, would I? Well, if you know Eric Watts, the one thing I do is I do try to help people out, and so I'd probably do it again, and I'd probably feel like I probably screwed that up,
Yeah.
because what would have happened, if I had all the attention? It was my debut and it was a
Yeah.
singles, and I controlled the whole situation. I was dealing with so much like, what's wrong with your partner? He wouldn't go in and introduce himself to anybody. When
Mm-hmm.
you're a rookie, when you're supposed to come in the locker room and shake every person's hand.
Mm-hmm.
You and me could be partying the night before, and I'd still have to come up and say, "Hey, Eric Watts, how you doing?" That's just what
Mm-hmm.
you do. He
Yep.
refused to, and here I am. We've already signed the contracts, and my mouth is like, I'm like, "You're missing it, bro.
Mm-hmm.
This is a have to, not if you want to." Well, who wants to talk to me? So I was dealing with all the stress and pressure of going and doing, and also there's a lot of pressure too because here we have 2 matches. Then we do TV, and Vince is we're going on a Canadian tour and a Europe tour. And when we get back Monday night, the Smoking Guns are supposed to drop their belts to us.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about that heat was crazy. And then I've got, then I'm dealing with, Chad and, so that was a lot of pressure. That was a little insane. But I mean, hey, life is like, I am not one of those guys. I've never said that. Oh, well, if I could go back in time.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't drink that Kool-Aid. There is no going back in time. So why worry about it? But if you're asking me, what are things, not that I would change, but what are things that might have changed my trajectory in certain areas?
Mm-hmm.
That would have been one. But at the same time, I end up rupturing my esophagus anyway. I mean, so who gives? I mean, I end up getting hurt and try to cover up the injury for a long time, even with the surgery and
Yeah.
and all that. And I just couldn't, and it got to why I was able to do TNA is when TNA I had decided, okay, I'm done. I can't do this to my
Mm-hmm.
family anymore. I got kids. I got a paint company. I got businesses. I got all this stuff. I said, just Eric, you don't go any further. And I got a call, and it worked for 2.5 years because my agreement was 52 days a year. All I had to do there was wrestle every Wednesday on pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm.
52 pay-per-views, man. And I'm like, shit, I don't, if I cough blood or don't cough blood, I can get through,
Yeah.
one match a week. And a matter of fact, during a lot of that time, I was Jerry Oates had called me and asked me as a favor, could I help him? He bought the name to Georgia Championship Wrestling, and he was opening a territory. And due to my respect for the old timers,
Mm-hmm.
I said, yeah, Jerry. And so I actually went down there not to get paid. Matter of fact, I told him not to pay me.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing it out of respect for pro wrestling to give back. And matter of fact, that's a funny story too, because they were wrestling on Sunday. So a lot of these TNA guys, they're doing independent shows or they're at
Yep.
home, right? So I started bringing in a lot of the TNA guys. Then I'll top that one off. I called WWE, and when they were having Jody Hamilton do the school,
Yep.
I worked a deal, and WWE started sending me the guys out of the wrestling school, some of the guys down there. The only thing that messed that up is when Vince stopped using Jody Hamilton to
Mm-hmm.
train the guys, and they went to Louisville,
Yep.
over
Mm-hmm.
there. That's the only reason they stopped wrestling at Georgia Championship Wrestling, and so I talked everyone into like, hey, come on, guys. I mean, this ring experience, it's this, that, and that place, man, it was packed every week. So
Mm-hmm.
realistically, I was wrestling like twice a week, doing some autograph sessions, and that allowed me to run my paint company, my turkey company, and I also for a year had a motivational speaking contract with the state with the state of Georgia too. So I stayed busy. Cough blood once or twice a week, not a big deal, and keep on going. But it was kind of after that when they were going to get serious and start running house shows and all that. It was my time to go. And it sucks too because right at that time, and then there was something else. I'd been 5 years in a divorce,
Mm-hmm.
and they were like, hey, we might want to cut out the pro wrestling income before the judge makes his decision. And so I called up Dixie Carter and said, hey, and she goes, yeah, well, you got money left on your contract. I said, keep it. I need to get out of this now. It's my
Mm-hmm.
health. And then this divorce hopefully is ending now. And so that was another main reason. And it sucks because I was just getting ready to go into a huge angle with DDP. Because I talked DDP into coming to TNA. So we had a match, and there was this whole angle,
Mm-hmm.
and we had to kill the whole angle.
What do you want your legacy in wrestling to be, and how has life been after wrestling? Because you are very big in sportsmanship, and you're a positive guy, and you're always willing, it seems like, to help someone to better themselves. So, to you personally, what do you want your legacy to be, and how has life after wrestling full time been for you?
One, I haven't even thought about my legacy in pro wrestling because, if WWE or AEW, now that my kids are grown and gone to college and out of college and now they've got their own careers and stuff, you know, and I'm 58. If they called me up and wanted me to do color commentary
Mm-hmm.
or book matches or do something like that, I don't think I would being a road agent. And, I don't need a job to have a job. But if it was something really creative and fun that I could, sink my teeth into, I would go and because empty nester, man. I
Yeah.
got my house and the kids are gone and all I do is run, Megawatts Ventures. I got a credit card processing company called Positively Processing. And I do some autograph sessions here and there. So I stay busy,
Mm-hmm.
but if wrestling called me back in, I would give it a shot if it was the right position. Therefore, maybe I haven't thought about what the legacy is,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because
Yeah.
am I done? Not. I don't know. And as far as what I'm doing now, I'm staying busy, man. I never give up. This is DDPY. Matter of fact, just so happens I do all the credit card processing for DDPY, right? I was just at a celebrity golf tournament this weekend, making an appearance, or Monday, Tuesday. Dick Cheney golf tournament. It was beautiful, man. A lot of pro football players, pro baseball players there raising money for the
Mm-hmm.
United Way and all for the good causes. It's stuff like that. That it's the stuff. It's the fact that I was telling someone this weekend. It's kind of weird. My mom is from Europe. My dad's from here in the States. And so my mom had to escape her country, her family, and them did when Russia took it over. And
Mm-hmm.
in the escape, the boat that they bartered with had been hit in the war and it starts sinking outside of Germany. So here they come. They have no paperwork. They have no nothing. They grabbed jewelry and stuff and snuck out, in the night and got across the border. So they put them in what were the concentration camps. That they were calling them deportation camps. And it took 7 years for them to get sponsored as a family. They could have come one at a time, but they didn't want to separate. 7 years. My mom said, son, when the boat landed in New York, I already knew everything about America because I envisioned what it would be like, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was young, she said, hey, Eric, I don't exactly know what God has planned for you, but I know it's going to be big. And she goes, just always do this. Remember, you're going to be given a platform. Understand it's not your platform.
Mm-hmm.
Understand there's a reason for your platform and respect it. Do not abuse it and lift others up. So that's kind of what I believe I'm to do. And it just reminds me, like go to a celebrity golf tournament. Man, I didn't go to play golf. I mean, I love playing golf, but I didn't go.
Mm-hmm.
I was sitting there with Mr. Cheney, where we're sitting there talking. He's like, yeah, in the United Way. And we got 16 little groups, battered women and all these different groups in this county that need help so bad. And we
Mm-hmm.
raise money to get to 16 groups that have no administration fees, that goes to the people that need what they need. And when you have time in between things and before the event and in between and you're hearing all that in the background, I wrote him a thank you for blessing me, for inviting me. And his response were, oh my goodness, hey, can I cut out some of this email and Facebook? I said, yeah. And he had told me that night at the auction, he goes, hey, would you please come next year? It's April 19th, 2021 of next year. It's already on my calendar. And then I said, hey, listen, how can I help you? And he said, hey, can you grab memorabilia for some of the other guys? If you know anyone that, celebrity that's famous, because at this particular celebrity tournament, no celebrities are paid to come. Like we got meals and we got the hotel, but no one's getting paid in a public appearance.
Yep.
No one's getting paid to fly in. If you want to drive, you want to fly, drive, do whatever you want. But here we go, right? Matter of fact, Bill Goldberg, I think, played in the tournament 2, 3 years back, 4 years back. This guy's had this tournament for 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
So why I'm saying that, so is soon as he starts saying that, when I got back, because it was the Tuesday night, I didn't get back till midnight. Wednesday, I write him the thank you email, and I call two or three friends I had on top. And so my first call was to a guy named Tyrone Hollywood Brown, Hall of Famer, Golden Harlem Globetrotter. And this guy speaks at schools. He does it all. I mean, and I called him. He goes, what are you talking about? Heck yeah, man. Now this guy, I can't remember how old he is now. He's actually thinking about retrying out for the Harlem Globetrotters. I think he's 66 or something like that, and which would be awesome in November. So, if he gets on the Harlem Globetrotters, then he might not be able to make the event. But if he can't, right, he's like, you mean to tell me, I was telling him all the great stuff. He goes, brother, I will be there, man. We'll help raise money. So that's the kind of stuff that I dig. That's the kind of stuff that I am into. And that's the kind of stuff, this merchant processing company that I've built, it keeps me busy. Not only did I talk to people and do the auctions, but then all of a sudden, you got a lot of sponsors and they own businesses. And before you know it, I say, hey, Eric, what do you do? Well, can you save us money? So I've got quite a few people that I've got to sit there and look at their statements and see what I can do, see if I can save them money. Because my whole thing is like, if I can save them money and make a little bit of money, then we all win.
Yep.
And it's just that easy. It's very simple.
Where can people reach out to you at?
Well, it's crazy you say that, and that's why I've said for the last 4 years I should get better at this. You know what? My company doesn't have a website. I'm all word of mouth. I got a Facebook page. I got Instagram. I got a Twitter account. I started to switch my Facebook to an athlete's page, so I could open it up to more people. Because since day 2 of Facebook, I've been maxed out at 5,000 people, which I've still never understood why you get maxed out. But for the life of me, I'm always having to delete 5-10 people to add 5 new people, and I don't want to do that. But I'm not the most tech savvy, right? And so I went to go do the athletes page, and then all of a sudden I sent out 10 invites just to test it. And then everyone's like, have you been hacked? Someone's trying to do that. I'm like, until I learn how to do this right, stop. And that was 4 years ago I quit because Facebook reached out to me and said, hey, you've got a lot of views, you got a lot of this. Why don't you open it up, monetize, and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, that'd be interesting. And it wasn't the monetization that I was most interested in. It was that more people could follow me, right?
Yep.
So I hate to say it. I just deleted 10 people today. But I do need a website. I do need to be more active. Even with you, man, you hit me up on Messenger, and I get so many messages and so many requests.
Oh, yeah.
If I don't recognize someone's name, I'll try every once in a while to go and recognize people's name, but then it's, hey, can you do this podcast? Can you do this? Can you do this? I try to respond as often as I can, but as soon as I told you that I do the podcast, I said, here's my number. Text me, because if you don't text me, I'm not the dude that I don't jump on Facebook every day. I don't jump on Messenger every day, right? So, but yeah, man, it stinks, but yeah, maybe in the near future I'll have a business website, and maybe I'll turn my page into a fan page and get better at this social media stuff. But that's about it, my brother. They can look me up. They can say, people that ask or request and they have like a message like, hey, I saw you wrestle here or da 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 da. And I really think that there are going to be people that want to be on there, because you get a lot of people that they just want to say that a wrestler's on there and then they're not posting, and they're not posting or doing anything. I'm not doing it to say, hey, I've got X number of followers. I'm not. It wouldn't matter if I had a fan page where I have followers and I don't have to accept and I don't have to do all that crap. That'd be one thing. But when you've got to accept people and then kick people off and all that other crap, it would be nice. Like I got to find out on Facebook if someone hasn't posted on their Facebook within a year. I wish it would just delete all those people.
Yeah.
So, well, Eric, and they may have it now. I just got to find someone that knows how to do it.
Well, Eric, I just want to say thank you for your time tonight. Thank you for what you've done for professional wrestling and what you continue to do, sir. It's truly been an honor to be able to speak with you a little bit about your career, and it's amazing to see, even though a lot of people tried to hold you down when you went into this profession, that you're still such a positive guy.
You said the key phrase. Others were trying to influence how I feel. And just thank God that I had two incredible parents.
Yep.
No one was going to hold down Cowboy Bill Watts. No one ever has. And the beauty of it is, as confident as he is, I've got a mother that her confidence has to do with her faith and her beliefs and her purpose in life to help others and believe in others and to lift people up. So I'll say this, I've told people, when I go to speak, right? I'm like, if you shoot for the moon and you miss, right? Yep. You may be among the stars when you miss the moon, but the people that don't shoot for anything, or let's say they shoot for the treetops, bro, if you shoot for that, that's as high as you're going to get to the treetops, right?
Yep.
Well, in life, the crazy thing, it also translates in your trajectory of where you want to go, also translates into what you hear.
Yep. Because
if you have a path that you're forging and you're focused on doing that, a lot of times everything else is static. You don't really hear it because you're flying. You've got a place to go. And so, yeah, you may hear some static every once in a while, but it really doesn't matter because you're on. Now, if you're just sitting there piddle farting around, and, well, I hope today is good, and I hope this, and I hope that. Well, yeah, then if someone says something good or bad, it may just make your day or crack your day. Yeah, I really don't have time for it, man. I'm blessed with such good friends, and such good relationships that I really can't take the time, or do I have the time to I got things to do, man, other than let someone try to pull me down, like the only people that are in my life realistically are others that are trying to lift people up, the Diamond Dallas Pages, the Lex Lugers, two great wrestlers that I communicate with on almost a daily, Lex on a daily basis, Dallas depending on where he's traveling, does he have cell phone service? But those are two names you can relate to. I've got probably 10, 12, 15 other ones of those types. And remember, I've got a brotherhood with wrestlers. Yes, we got high school, but I got a whole brotherhood of college football players too, So a lot of people and all the people that I met on my road to where I'm at now. So I appreciate your kind words, my friend. And I appreciate your time, and thank you for having me on.
If there's ever anything that I can do, please feel free to reach out.
I'll reach out maybe when I get my website, my social media right. I'll reach out to you.
Absolutely, sir. I appreciate the time.
Stay blessed.